Good evening, everybody. Um, my name is Winnie Kiryabwire. Welcome to the lead NED Awards. Today, it's a pleasure to have a conversation with the chief himself, Mr. Japheth Katto. It's an honor to have you with me this evening.
Thank you, Winnie. I think in your introduction you forgot to say you are a doctor, you are an associate professor. So I was worried whether we're going to have an interview or you're going to interview me like you do those who are doing your PhD thesis.
I think when an ordinary person is interviewing a chief, perhaps the academics is put on the side. But Mr. Kato, we both know each other, and so I think we can have, and we've had long conversations about corporate governance. So
We've even written a book,
Yes, we've written a book together. Interesting. I think we should write another one.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Good. Okay, so we are going to talk about a couple of things on this subject, and I hope that perhaps out of these directors, people who are aspiring to be directors, can pick one or two things as takeaway for, on these issues of corporate governance and leading organizations. Now, one thing I have observed is that your journey, your corporate governance journey, if I may put it that way, has been quite an interesting journey. You've been a regulator, you've been a CEO, you have worked with boards, you've been a director, and you've also chaired boards. But I'd also like to think that it actually started much earlier as an accountant and as a person who, in your previous life, investigated companies. These are things that must come to the attention of the board. So tell us a little bit about your corporate governance journey.
Well, thank you very much, Winnie. First of all, it is a great pleasure. We have worked together in areas of regulation. And it's interesting you ask me this question because the question comes, where did it all come from? Where did my interest come from? I was at university, and that time there was one university. When you said you were at university, it meant you were at Makerere University. I did a BCom, and to disclose my age, I graduated in 1975. I think many people in the audience here may not have even been born. Even some of them, their parents may not have been born.
But let me disclose. I was born a year after that.
So, interesting, and I did a BCom. And to be honest with you, I did not hear a word called corporate governance in the class. But you know what? Companies were there. They were being governed. They were failing. Boards were there, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Another interesting thing is my career, as you mentioned, I actually did insolvency work. This was in the UK, and it was mainly companies winding up. I never did individual bankruptcies. And what was very interesting, one of the questions we always used to ask the directors of a failed company, what was the cause of failure? Tell you what, the typical answer was, Mr. Katto, it's the bank. I said, the bank? What has the bank got to do with it? If the bank had given me additional loan and extended my overdraft, this company would not have collapsed. I said, but one of them was actually a chartered accountant. I said, but if you look at, you are a chartered accountant, if you look at the income and the expenditure and the way you were doing and not following your strategy and so on and so forth, do you think this company would have survived long? Said, no, it's all got to do the bank. It was at fault. They never gave me money. I'm a chartered, I know what to do, and so on and so forth. In fact, that particular gentleman reported me to my boss that my questioning was, I was showing a level of arrogance and knowledge to him as a chartered accountant. So that's insolvency winding up. Then when I left the insolvency service, I joined the financial services regulation and started in investigation. And this was under the Companies Act, where you go and inquire into a company following some allegations and so on, and that company can be wound up in the public interest. They may be solvent and so on and so forth there. But what happened is that you came to realize that many of these organizations actually, their failure was not because they did not have capital. They had the capital, they misapplied it. They did not lack customers, they did not lack a market, but it's because the way they were being run, the way they're being governed. They say you need a company secretary. Somebody thought that as a director, his wife, you can have your wife as a company secretary. And there is no guidance, there is nothing there. Of course, a board of directors and so on, especially for small companies. So from there, and then continued to liquidation, I just came to realize. Then, of course, the big things happened, the Enrons of this world and so on. But it was a realization that this is an area that is very, very interesting. And the cause of a company's failures is not necessarily lack of customers or lack of capital. Lack of capital comes about because you have misapplied the capital. And then, of course, the experience we had with the failed banks here in the late 1990s, early 2000s, where actually the Ogola report, and in the interest of transparency, as you know, I was a commissioner on that commission of inquiry, which, by the way, was not published. But New Vision had some, said the cause of those banks' failures was a style of autocratic corporate governance. So that is where the interest comes from. That's the history of it. But to be honest with you, that is what I learned, and then I just got some interest in the area. Then, of course, the whole area of regulation. I was a regulator in the UK when the Maxwell raided the Mirror Group Pension Fund, and the pension regulation at the time did not exist. Trustees, he had his sons as trustees of the pension scheme, and so on and so forth. So I think that has influenced my my interest in corporate governance and experience.
That's quite an interesting journey, Mr. Katto. I'm surprised that none of the people you interacted with said it's the managers, it's the CEOs who led this. Well, but the banks took the blame.